Scaling a business is exciting, but deciding how to use your profits can be one of the hardest financial challenges. Do you reinvest in growth, build a financial safety net, or take home more earnings? Now, without the right budgeting approach, what seems like an opportunity can quickly turn into a financial nightmare. In this video, I'm going to explore how to budget for expansion effectively, and by the end, hopefully we'll answer this very simple riddle. I can make or break your future, but if I grow too fast, I may crush you. What am I? Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Dr. David Leitner, and I am the Chief Rhydler. Budgeting for expansion isn't just about spending more money. It's about allocating resources strategically. And there are a couple of key areas to focus on: fixed cost, variable cost, and unexpected expenses. Now, fixed costs, they can include things like rent, salaries, subscriptions, things that don't change so much. Variable costs, that's like marketing, production, operation costs. That's that conference you went to last month. And they fluctuate as you grow. And then there's some unexpected expenses. And here's where you kind of want a safety net just for surprises. Maybe 10-20% of your budget, especially your expansion budget, should go there. But there's a lot more to it than this. If we just take a moment to look at what I mean, let's imagine a small business owner who's been working remotely with a small team of freelancers, but they all live in the same general area. Now they've decided to invest in a physical office space. They might budget for rent and utilities, furniture, equipment, increased operational costs that come with maintaining an office. Well, did you think about those? Because if not, that can burn through your resources. Now, hypothetically, you could rent out a place that helps alleviate some of that stress. One of those all-inclusive spaces. But even then, we have to consider the month-to-month expenses, and if we have the recurring revenue to maintain that space. On the other hand, consider a business owner who's just contemplating a new hire. One new team member. Sure, okay, we have to factor in salary, but what about onboarding costs, benefits, the time it takes for the new hire to become really productive? A lot of small business owners, we tend to forget that adding a new team member often means things like additional software costs. You might have to upgrade project management tools or have to add another user to a license that we have for really essential apps that we're using. And there's also other costs that come along. Do they need a new laptop? Do they need office supplies, paper, pencils? And all those add up quickly. And that doesn't even include training time, which has its own expense. I mean, if you think about it, it can take weeks or months for a new hire to really reach full productivity. And it also takes time away from your existing employees and you as the business owner, because you have to guide that onboarding process. And that adds to the strain on the budget because now you're not focused on other things, and neither are your employees. And that's something we have to take into account as we build our scaling budget. And that's why a strong scaling budget and expansion budget really needs to try and anticipate as many of these costs and move them from hidden costs into expected costs that won't disrupt growth. Now, many small business owners, especially solopreneurs who might be using freelancers, they don't necessarily see all the hidden costs. Something as simple as the subscriptions that we invest in. A single $10 a month tool might seem insignificant, but when you stack those up, and the email software and access to the CRM and access to design tools and other automation apps and who knows what else, suddenly $10 is $50 or $100, and that's month over month. Many entrepreneurs, they subscribe to tools that they only use occasionally, and they might be able to replace them with free alternatives, and that might help alleviate some of this. But that's only if that money could be allocated to something more impactful. Before we commit to a subscription, it's really good to evaluate what's the ROI, the return on investment. And if there's a lower cost alternative, or if there's a free alternative, and if that meets our needs, is that enough? And this is kind of where prioritizing investments becomes so crucial. We really do need to distinguish between like necessary expenditures and other stuff. Necessary expenditures, they directly contribute to our business's growth. And those are really important. But we don't necessarily need to invest in all of them all at once. Making smart financial decisions at this stage really ensures that every dollar we're using is used effectively. And it sets the foundation for sustainable growth and scalability. And not all expenses are created equal. We really have to identify those must-have investments. The new hire, certain subscriptions versus free tools, certain upgraded technology. Some of these might seem like nice to haves, but in reality, those are have to haves if we want to look professional and we want to be recognized for the quality of work that we're capable of bringing. Ultimately, what we want to do is focus on what drives revenue and operational efficiency. And I want to make clear, I'm not saying you should avoid paying for office space. If that's what you need and it's important, great, but budget for it. But before we commit, we have to ask, how does this space increase productivity or revenue? Can I sustain this cost long term? Or am I stretching my finances too thin? And it's not just about office space. A lot of businesses rush into different commitments that seem necessary, but really when you get down to it, it's just adding a financial burden that doesn't actually bring a return on this investment. So we really have to carefully evaluate and try and create what's called financial foresight. That's really, really crucial. And that leads us to the next question. Like, okay, we've decided we're expanding. We need to be able to get space, bring on a new person, whatever. How are we affording this expansion in the present? You know, how are we gonna fund the expansion? And here we have several options. We can reinvest our profits. It's slower, but it's super sustainable, especially if we have financial foresight. We can take business loans, add some debt that provides immediate capital. We could even turn to investors, bring in funds that may require us to give up a little bit of equity and freedom, but it's not our money. We could ask friends and family to help out. And each approach has its trade-offs. Now, we can choose based on our risk tolerance and our long-term goals. But there's another common approach, especially in the small business world, solopreneurs, startups. It's called bootstrapping. And that's where business owners use their own capital to fuel growth instead of relying on external funding. Now, this method, it allows for full ownership and it avoids debt. But out of all of our possible choices, this is the one that requires the most disciplined financial management. Solopreneurs, small business owners who bootstrap, they're often reinvesting revenue directly into the business. They might be delaying personal income to sustain growth. And while it can be a slower path and it can ensure long-term financial independence and stability, it's very important to balance that reinvestment with maintaining personal financial health. So it's like ensuring operational stability, ensuring my own personal financial well-being. One of the biggest mistakes small business owners make is failing to separate personal and business finances. And when personal and business finances get mixed up with each other, it can be so hard to track expenses. And it's really hard to measure profitability. I know from experience, because that was one of the mistakes I made at the beginning. And it made it hard for us to ensure that we were doing our taxes properly. And it can lead to all kinds of decisions that are super emotional rather than strategic. So we decided to establish separate accounts and maintain much clearer records. And, you know, then you get to start deciding, well, who am I paying a salary to? Myself, workers, and how can I help create maybe a financial buffer that keeps my personal finances stable, and also keep my business profitable as we scale. And if there's one lesson I've learned, budgeting is not a one and done task. Monitoring our numbers regularly, weekly, monthly, it helps ensure that my expenses align with my projections. It helps me keep a close eye on our cash flow. It helps prevent financial surprises, and it allows us to be proactive and adjust as issues arise. Now, you can use financial tools for this, or you can use a simple spreadsheet. Either of these can help you identify trends, spot unnecessary expenses, maintain financial stability. And one of the most important things we need to do is really understand how business finances work. It's just as important as monitoring them. Understanding the struggle is very real, is very important. And when we're budgeting, it's super important to have basic financial knowledge. Many small business owners struggle with budgeting because they don't have that financial knowledge. And it takes time to learn financial principles, how to read a balance sheet, understanding profit margins, and forecasting revenue. But this can make such a significant difference. And there are online courses and books, or you can work with a financial coach. Some of our Rhydlers work in that field, and they empower you to make informed decisions that support your expansion. And it's important to know when to ask for help. Financial management can be overwhelming, and recognizing when you need expert advice, that's a sign of strength, not weakness. Whether you're consulting with an accountant, a financial advisor, a business mentor, one of our Rhydlers, you can provide yourself with valuable insights that can help you navigate complex decisions and avoid costly mistakes. Having the right support system, it ensures that our budget remains realistic and it is adaptable as our business scales. I have found scaling to be an exciting journey. And I've also learned that financial mismanagement can totally derail it. It's important to budget wisely, track our spending, and adjust as needed to ensure that expansion is sustainable. I'm sure you remember our riddle from the beginning. I can make or break your future, but if I grow too fast, I will crush you. The answer is your budget. Sounds crazy, but managing your finances wisely, it doesn't only ensure your business grows at a sustainable pace. It's about keeping yourself strategically sound in the long run. If you'd like to learn more about strategic scaling, sign up for the Rhydler newsletter. We deep dive into scaling strategies, leadership insight, growth planning, and followership. Thank you for spending your time with me today. See you next time. Thank you for joining us in the Doctor's Den. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hope to see you next time.